So how do you learn photography? Do you just start guessing at some switches? Do you ask someone? Well, professional photographers, if you ask them, they're going to give you probably more information you can consume. And besides, they don't know what to tell you, because if you're a beginner, you have so much to learn. So the best way I have found to learn, and I've come a long way and I've done some professional shoots, so I'm getting there. And I still have a lot to go. But what I started doing was, one, these blog posts and these YouTube videos. I have to learn a lot to do these. I have to practice them. I know they existed, but I never tried them before. But with my photography tips and tricks, it's a weekly blog post. Check it out. The link is down below. Check it out. I have tips every week, every Monday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time that they post. These tips are very random. They happen to be things I've been doing that week. It could be just I'm sitting watching TV. It's like, oh, that's a tip. I'll write it down. And I make short blog posts on these. It's not a long blog post explaining the details of how aperture works. It's not a long blog post talking about how the focus mechanism works on cameras. They're very short, succinct tips. I think I've only had one or two that exceeded a paragraph. Wouldn't it be great to have a place to find photography tips? I've got one for you. It's a blog post that I write every Monday morning at 8:30 a.m. is when it gets posted. Check down below for the link and follow along. I'm going to share 5 of those tips with you today. 5 of them. I've written over 60, so I've been doing this for quite a while. I'm rather consistent, so check them out. So let's cover 5 of them. They're in really no order. I picked 5 at random, actually sorted by most hits, but some of them have been around longer than the others, so they had an unfair advantage of getting more time to get hits. So tip number 1 is actually tip number 19 in my blog, and that is to, when you're out and about, you don't have your camera with you, which you should have your camera with you, but if you don't, you're maybe going to a dinner date with your spouse or with your family, or you're in a school where you can't, or whatever the condition is that you cannot have your camera. When you look at a scene, decide how you would take pictures. What would you take a photo of? How would you frame it up? How's the lighting? Is it dark? Is it harsh light? Is it soft light? Are there shadows? Where's the sun? Where are my light sources? There's tons of things to look at in a scene. The next tip is tip number 21 of my blog post, and this tip talks about behind the scenes. I've gone on a couple photo shoots with friends only to come home and realize I took no photos of my friends while I was out. So make sure you look around, take photos of the scene, take photos of your friends. What is the crowd doing? A good example, if you went to the eclipse that happened, I think last year, the eclipse is a great thing to take a photo of, but the people's expressions probably were pretty awesome to get some photos of. So look around. What's going on behind the scenes of your photo? Third tip is tip number 28, and I'm surprised this one got as much because it's a pretty obvious tip, and that is to take a cloth with you. And I've got one that's tied onto a carabiner hook, so I can hook it onto my bag if I want, but I typically don't do that because it'll be hanging outside and collecting dust and dirt. I prefer to keep it inside my bag, so you can put a carabiner hook inside your bag and hook it up so it's available. Number 4 is actually tip number 4, so this is going way back, so this one may be on the list because it's one of my early tips, but it's how to get a starburst. If you ever looked at a photo and it has street lights, Christmas lights or whatever, and there are starbursts, streams coming off of the lights. You get that by increasing your aperture setting. You want at least f8 to get that starburst to start. So if you want a longer starburst, then you want to go to f11 or f16 or whatever your camera will go to, and you'll get more starbursts from that photo. And finally, the last one. This one I also have another piece with me, and this is protect your small parts. This is, if you can see it, is a, it's not in focus, focus. This goes on top of my tripod. This tip came from one of my photo trips I went on a hike. I ended up not using my tripod, and good thing I didn't, because when I was getting out of my truck and loading my gear on my back in my backpack, my tripod, the quick connect was on my tripod and it knocked it off, and it was sitting on the floor of my truck. So when I returned from my trip, I found my quick disconnect for my tripod sitting inside my truck. So this tip was, take that off before you go on a trip where you're walking around and your tripod's exposed. Take that quick disconnect off, put it inside your camera, inside a side pouch if you're carrying one, inside your pocket, somewhere where it's not going to come off. Another option is screw it onto the bottom of your camera. You're going to feel it, and it's not likely going to come off of that as easily as it would on a quick disconnect. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you picked up a few tips. Leave me a comment down below which one of these were your favorite tips. I have a lot more tips on my blog post. The link will be in my description down below. If you're getting value out of this content, hit the subscribe and like button. It helps me out. I also have a link here at the end of this video with some other YouTube videos that I've created in the past. Make sure you check them out. Until then, I'll see you next time. It's Doug Gabbard, getting better one photo at a time.